Hello. Don't say anything. Hello.
Hello!
Hello.
Hello, lovely people, and welcome to the Toilet Paper Fortune Cookie Podcast. I am Matt Stokey. That is David Stringer. Look at him.
Did you see that production value tonight?
Honestly, we're getting so slick now. Dave, look, now I know where to point
Hey,
to.
you know what I thought about this morning? I thought about I'm going to put little Post-it notes at which way to point.
It's a great idea. I just
Point that way.
I guessed.
Yeah.
People, this is the Toilet Paper Fortune Cookie Podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
Unorthodox Wisdom from Unexpected Reality. Dave, remind him what that means.
Well, I will as soon as we figure that out.
Yeah.
So, and that's a little bit of the point here. The podcast seeks to combine business and art and see how those two things come together. And in essence, this podcast is for all entrepreneurs. And what we're hoping is that we can share a little bit of our experience, and it might sound a little bit like wisdom at times, and, keep trying to get better about, what we do as our crafts. So.
Thanks, Mike Fabus. It's a pork pie, actually. It's my homage to Popeye Doyle. I got stopped in an airport one time when I was wearing it, and a TSA guy, generally known for their hilarious senses of humor, was like, "Hey, great hat, Popeye!" And I was like, "Oh, that's the greatest compliment I've ever gotten." So, and today I'm wearing it because it's about 34 degrees and snowing in New York, which is really great. Those of us on the East Coast are having a wonderful time today in the Midwest. Yeah, snow in May.
It's a little chilly here in the Carolinas, a little rain, which is good. It's been pretty rainy down here. So, but let's get right to an update. Matt.
Yeah.
How's the health?
Fantastic. Yes, thank you to everybody who chimed in this week and looked in on me. It was humbling and wonderful. I feel terrific. I am basically asymptomatic. I got all of my taste buds back. Doesn't mean I got my taste back. Hey-o! But I got about...
Wearing the hat.
I got good taste in hats. But I'd say 85% of my smell back. Some things are a little bit weird and wacky, but it's kind of a game I play with myself. Like, I don't know, what does that smell? I don't know. Doesn't matter.
And, I'm not gonna ask about the shower updates because that might get a little too personal. So
no, but the shower is actually a really good kind of gauge of where your smell is, because I use a lot of there's a lot of
really soaps.
I use this stuff called Pears. It's a kind of soap that's
okay,
sort of see-through. It's a very fancy soap that I get at the dollar store because I don't know why they have it, but it's super duper smelly, and I smell wonderful. I just showered a while ago, and I smell incredibly good. So I use that, and now I can smell and taste coffee, which is genius.
Oh, that's nice.
And now the next step for me is, I believe on Tuesday, I am going to be able to get the full-on antibody test at my doctor. Not the finger prick, but the full, like, go in and they take a whole I think it's like 2.5 quarts of blood from you. I don't know the metric system, but it's close. But yeah, I'll get to do that on Tuesday, and then hopefully I've got the super juice antibodies. I'm hoping. And then you're
like Superman. You can do anything, right? Leap tall buildings.
Well, I mean, they obviously are still figuring it out, and what you can do and what you can donate. And there's certain quotients to what the antibodies tell you and what's possible, but just taking it step by step. And I'm very, very fortunate that it seems that I got the low end type of symptoms that we know.
Well, we are super, super glad that you've come through it pretty well.
I look amazing.
Yeah, you do look amazing. You looked amazing the whole time. You never really looked at, we did practices and video chats and stuff like that. You never looked sickly. So
no.
Good thing.
No, that's because that's a full vegetable diet, 14 hours of sleep a night, and lots of makeup. If anybody out there just got that movie reference, I will give someone $100 if they got that movie reference.
Put it in the comments.
Don't look it up on the internet.
Don't not look it up. Not fair. So, hey, what are we drinking tonight?
12 hours of sleep a night and lots of makeup. If anybody knows what that is, I will literally give you $100. But if it takes too long, that means you looked it up.
$100. That's pretty good. I don't know what that's from, but I'm watching for the comments. What are we drinking? I know that our guest is going to come on and talk about his drink of specialty. What are you drinking? What are you drinking?
I'm drinking his. So you tell them what you made.
Okay, so this is homemade margarita mix from Cinco de Mayo, and it is super, super delicious. So.
That's right, men describing soap. That's right. That's what we do here.
Yeah, I like that comment. That was funny.
So there. Who is that Facebook user? Who said that?
That Mustoki?
Oh, that's my sister-in-law.
That's your sister-in-law.
Yep, that's what we do. We're very excited. This right here, and I'm not going to tell you all the ingredients because I actually kind of screwed them up, but when our special guest, Mr. Richard Blake, joins us later, he's going to give you his special Kentucky Mule recipe. Mine is mostly bourbon, so it's there's supposed to be other things in it, but got the fancy cup here, and I'm gonna sip on it. Otherwise, by the time we get to the interview, it's gonna be
as my uncle Buddy says, you made it brown. You made it nice and dark.
Did I ever? And also, for those of you who don't know David's father, Billy Bobo, as he is affectionately referred to, one of my favorite people on the planet. His dad has the most kick-ass collection of bourbons that I maybe exists in the world. It is nuts.
Maybe in the future, when we go on vacation and we're there on a Friday, I will do a show from their Casa Stringer that is like Club Med now in St. Petersburg.
And just you and your dad just doing bourbon tastings and just getting
that would be a lot of fun. He would dig that. He would love it, and I could show the whole collection, and it is really set up. So yeah,
I would love that so much.
Yeah. So, hey, we did get some comments about what song we were playing. That is a song called, oh my gosh. I just forgot the song. It's my side hustle. Something of what you got.
Yeah.
Work with what you got.
Work with what you got. There it is.
Oh my God. That was like a terrifying moments there. Sorry about that. Yes, I did completely blank out on what the name of that song was. Anton's going to kill me. But that's
you came back in.
Check them out at sidehustletheband.com. Great band working on their second EP that should come out later this year. So a recap of last week, we had Micah Davidson on from Midwood Entertainment. That went really, really well. Got a lot of great comments. Really fun conversation about the music biz. Hi, Alice. It's okay that you're late. We still love you. And, my sister Melanie is just joined us. Very nice. So we've had some developments. We've broadened our reach. We are now on Podbean as a full-on podcast.
We are.
We have yet to make it to all of the streaming platforms yet. So it takes a little time for Podbean to distribute it out.
Yeah.
And we should be showing up on Apple Podcasts and the other ones, whatever the other ones are. Yep. We also tonight are streaming live on our YouTube channel. So you can find us on YouTube, subscribe to us, Toilet Paper Fortune Cookie on YouTube. And this episode will be up there. And then we're going to be uploading the past episodes as well. So our Facebook group is up to 448 members. Thank you. We're so happy and flabbergasted by that number. We had 206 views of the last podcast, so we so appreciate the views. So share us around, and let's keep this thing growing. So, all right,
Dave and I have some good ideas moving forward, especially as the situation is shifting and changing daily, as we all know, and from day to day, and from hour to hour, and certainly from state to state, how things are changing. And Dave and I being in two very diametrically opposed states of
what virus?
of opening and closing and all these things. And it's they're heavy debates and they are heady debates, and everybody's kind of winging it and trying to figure it out. And I spent a lot of time this week. If we're going to transition into let's do unexpected entrepreneurship before I launch into that. But yes, so Dave and I, we have a lot of ideas moving forward.
You surprised me. I thought you wanted me to go to that, so we're sticking with the script, right?
Yeah. So a short introduction. This is our unexpected entrepreneurship segment of the show. A very old dear friend of mine who I've known, good Lord, since the late 90s. And then she and I went very different ways in our lives. She was a Broadway dancer. She's gone on to do amazing things. She has been a dance teacher throughout her life, but her latest endeavor is the definition of unexpected entrepreneurship. And her name is Jessica Michaels, and she's amazing. And she sent us some info about her foundation. We're not going to go into it too much. She would like to tell everybody about it, especially working in Newtown at Sandy Hook. So she's amazing. Can we play the video?
Ooh, you caught me.
We don't know how to do that?
Yeah.
That's okay.
I thought we were going to use the video that she sent us as a promo.
Oh, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah. So anyway, that's going to be Jessica's going to be our guest next week, and she's got an amazing story to tell. Hey, there's Jessica Michaels. Hi there. We're just talking about you and talking about you coming on the show next week to tell us all about Wingman and the amazing things you guys are doing. So we will have the lovely and incredible Jessica Michaels here with us next week. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it and for everybody to get an idea of what she's doing, which is remarkable.
So yeah, we'll have a video that she shared with us today that we will premiere on the podcast in the week to premiere the podcast for her guest appearance next Friday, May 15th. And I just want to kind of revel in my technical expertise here.
Yeah,
I got this slide on there. Isn't that cool? So anyway, we're really looking forward to talking to her about her pivot. She sounds like she's got a great story and an excellent unexpected entrepreneur example. So I'll use this to say, if you feel like you've got a story to tell us about your unexpected entrepreneurship, we want to hear about it.
Definitely.
Jessica commented last week, and we picked up on the comment. We had some back and forth, and then she talked to Stokey, and it was clear she fit the perfect definition of somebody who was not expecting to be an entrepreneur, and all of a sudden she's thrust into that and loving it and what she's learning. So we'll dive into that next week. So
and also she'll be a great example of how the whole reason why we started this podcast was not only unexpected entrepreneurship, which we could have done at any time in the history of our lives, but certainly now, given the new challenges that we're all facing, foundation like the one that Jessica runs is also going to be facing some new and unexpected challenges. So we're looking forward to hearing her insight on all those things. She also came from showbiz, so she has some. We talked a long time the other night, and she's got some great ideas and great thoughts about all of that moving forward as well.
Cool. So you in rehearsal, we talked about you had a slogan that you heard, and I don't want to steal it from you.
I stole it.
It's a play on the new normal, and it's kind of like where we are now. And I think that would be a great week in review, because I had some comments that are going to connect in a few minutes to my stringer session and strategy session. So
I heard somebody say it.
Teasing it out.
I heard somebody say it, or I read it somewhere, and it really rang true with me. And I'm trying to just keep it in my verbiage of all things. And instead of the new normal, which indicates that things have changed in a complete way and is what they will be forever, somebody referred to it as the now normal, which I know that taking the lead from our governor Cuomo, saying that we will get through this. Now, there are going to be things that change, but there will be a time when things will very much resemble the way they were in 2019. So it really rings true to me because in my Stokey Stories section, I just want to address some of the things that are going on amongst my contemporaries, my people that I work with, theater people specifically, because television and film are going to get back to work.
Lay it on us, brother.
Yeah. Television and film, they're going to get back to work. They're figuring out ways to do it. They're already shooting new episodes in new and interesting ways. They have the technology to do it. Theater, live performance in any way, shape, or form is going to have a rough time. Even rougher than that is Broadway, because we are in New York. It's going to be a while before people say, hey, let's take a vacation in New York. It's going to be a while. Not to mention the logistics in how you restructure shows, how you restructure your audience, how you test people. If someone gets sick, how you clean the theaters, all of those things. It's going to be incredibly difficult. What it's not going to be is impossible. And I won't say discouraged, but I was somewhat saddened by a lot of the tone that I was seeing on social media this week in regards to our way of life, specifically the Broadway way of life, being gone as we know it. I couldn't disagree more. I do understand the concern. I understand the anxiety. I really, really do. However, this virus will not be around forever. It might be here for a while. And I'm hoping that what happens in between is not just sitting here waiting for the vaccine. I know that there are smart people in rooms all over the place figuring out how we're going to get this moving very, very soon in a very safe way. Nobody is going to sit there on their hands and just say, oh, well, there's a virus. I guess we'll just leave all the theaters dark for the next, 2 years maybe. Let's just do that. It's not going to happen. If anything, we are uniquely qualified in New York and as theater people to solve some problems, to handle shit, if I can quote my friend Andrew Call. So I want to encourage my fellow New York Broadway actors, producers, directors, stage managers, designers to think moving forward as opposed to pining or weeping for something that is gone. Yes, right now what we had, what we built is gone. For right now, it's gone, and that's fine because there's going to be other things that come out of it. There is going to be a new wave of ideas, and Richard's going to touch on that a little bit when we talk to him. Things are going to change. It's not over. Let's stop that, because one of the things that I've always found in my adult life that I have a hard time abiding, and maybe I need to be a little bit more pliable, I don't have a lot of time to listen to people who predict doom.
Yeah.
I think people who predict doom are gutless. I think they are cowards. The first reason I thought this in the first place, sports prognosticators are the worst. They're the worst. They suck and this and that, and they're never going to win, and the team's for crap and la la la. People call in sports shows, and it just dawned on me one day. I was like, it's the easiest thing in the world to predict something will go wrong, to predict something will lose, to predict something isn't going to succeed. Easiest thing in the world. It takes no guts at all because
we're surrounded by failure. I mean, we're always there's plenty of stories of failure. You're right. I mean,
everywhere.
It's easy to predict failure.
And it doesn't mean that you're overlooking the obstacles. If you're just like, I think it's all going to work out fine. No, that's not the point. It's not just like, buck up, you little camper. Everything's going to be fine. No, there is work to be done. There is serious work to be done to handle what's going on right now. And it's going to take smart people doing smart things and really driven people doing really driven things. And those are the people that I've made my entire career with. It's what I love most about it. So that right now, there is zero advantage to predicting that's it. We're done.
Right.
That's the world we have built up and the world that we love. We will never see it again. Bullshit. That's wrong. That's absolutely 100% wrong, and it's unproductive. I understand, and I'm not overlooking people being very upset about what's happening right now and very anxious about what's happening right now. But that way of looking at it, do it and then put it aside.
I think what's ironic about that is those are the same people who will sit on the sidelines and judge how it all comes back too. So you really, As an entrepreneur, you got to figure out those. I call them energy sucks, and I'm down at I didn't come up with that. That's as somebody helped me to see that. But it's basically people that just suck energy, and they suck energy out of entrepreneurs. And you have to really figure out the people that you're around you when you're trying to rebuild Broadway. Who are the people that are just going to suck energy out of it? Who are just going to sit on the sidelines? And then the funny part is, then once they're back up and running, it's like, oh, I want to be involved. I want to be involved.
Yeah.
Well, time out. It's the mother hen who bakes the bread kind of story. It's the exact same thing. So I think it's very ironic.
And I also don't. I'm not that guy who's just like, oh, suck it up. No, I'm not saying, oh, suck it up, because there are legitimate reasons right now to be upset by what is happening, and there are legitimate reasons to think, how is it going to work out?
Sure.
How is this like? Are we talking 6 months? Are we talking 4 years? Because as it turns out, the last vaccine we came up with, it didn't take 8 months to put together. 4 years.
Yeah.
We're not going to sit here for 4 years. There's going to be treatment. There's going to be new methods of doing things. It's going to be bumpy. So I'm not saying that everyone who just feels bad about what's going on. No. I'm not saying, oh, shut up, stop whining. No, that's not it. However, it is counterproductive thinking to moving forward, as we call it, and pivoting and moving in one direction or another. And this came out of something that happened yesterday. There are studios all over New York City where we rehearse, where we audition, where we do workshops, where we do readings and all that stuff. And one of the oldest ones in Midtown is called Shetler Studios, run by a guy named Ron Shetler. And it was announced yesterday that due to circumstances, he's closing down his studios forever. People who know theater, a lot of people reacted in this is a portent of doom. Right. This is it. Now these things, it starts. I saw somebody say it starts. They're going to shut down. Then we're all just dead. We all died. We all died because Shetler Studios closed down. Shetler Studios was in business for 30 years. When I first got to the city, Shetler Studios and NOLA Studios were the two studios where everybody rehearsed, everybody had auditions. Over the last 10 to 15 years, they've almost been run out of business anyway, not by a virus, but by Ripley Greer and by Pearl Studios, so these massive studios down on 8th Avenue. That's free markets, baby. And now, I don't know. I hadn't asked Ron Shetler, but maybe he's like, you know what? It's been 30 years. Screw it. I'm retiring. I'm betting that he didn't close his doors and just say, virus, sorry, got to go. Locking the doors, virus, give up. No, I'm sure it's 1,000 other things. But the immediate reaction to me was so like, oh my God, that's what we're reacting to. Like we don't have any idea of the extenuating circumstances that, he might have been looking like
it's been 30 years is a long time. I mean,
it's fantastic. And he did great by all of us. And there were hundreds of people who got their first Broadway offer in his studios. It was great. Yeah. Things change. Other businesses go under. Other businesses will pick up the slack. Yeah. Somebody's now going to go, wait, Shetler Studios is empty? Hold on. I'm going to come in while the market is low and get my foot in there and restart them and make them better.
Hey, there you go. That's the entrepreneur we want to talk to. Hey, if you want to do that, get on our show because we want to talk to you about that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a long, Stokey story, but it was perfect. It took a lot for me this week because I had a fight with myself about going from divided to empathetic. And that's one of the things that Jessica Michaels will talk about is she's about the idea of teaching empathy. And this week, I really, really, really tried, and I'm going to keep trying because I succeeded and I didn't succeed, to look at all sides of this thing and look at it with empathy and with sympathy and to say, okay, I'm not just going to get angry at people who disagree with how this is all working out. People who say it's a hoax or it's a conspiracy or open up our state or
it's a drain.
Carrying.
Why give it any? It shouldn't take away from your energy to be the guy, one of the guys who steps forward and says, okay, how are we going to change this? Let's get to work. Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And listen, I mean, this is this is very close to your industry, and it is universal to what we all have to deal with. And again, it goes back to that energy piece. And this all ties together so nicely with my stringer strategy session, which we will go to now.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I will do a stringer strategy session on energy, because that is one of the most important things, another important thing that a CEO, an entrepreneur, an actor, a musician, all have to work to master, is mastering energy. And part of that is mastering people who suck energy out of you, and figure out who those people are and quiet them down, put them in a corner, get rid of them, out of your life if necessary. And we all have organizations, industries, where we've got to deal with those energy sucks. Like you, I was practicing my own preaching this week. So last week I did a stringer strategy session on impulse versus intuition, which
was quite insightful.
Mastering that is such an important piece of how to be a good entrepreneur. I think it's also very important for an actor and very important for a musician. So this week I was tested with impulses. Because one of the greatest things that create impulses is inactivity, which for someone who's high energy like us, drives us crazy. When things don't progress, the inactivity drives you to make impulsive moves to move something along, which is kind of ties back to how this all, last week kind of happened. But I had to live my own preaching this week. I had several situations that were not progressing, and that inactivity, that forced wait, that there was nothing I could do to move this forward. I was battered with impulses. Well, I'll just email them. I'm just going to go email them right now. Well, I'm just going to forward this message right now. I'm going to move these documents along because I'm tired of waiting on these people to tell me that these documents are all right.
Yeah.
Right. So mastering inactivity and mastering those periods of time where despite nothing you do can move things forward, it is vital. And it's the same for entrepreneurs. It's the same for actors waiting on the callback, right? Musicians waiting on to hear about that venue, right? And there's nothing you can do. And sometimes you will meet your own end if you don't master that, because that impulsive email to that venue that says, and I remember talking to an artist who did this. He told me, look, I just sent them an email and said, if they don't tell me right now that I have the gig on this date, I'm never going to ask them again.
Yeah.
Delete.
Yeah.
You know what they did? And they never got asked again, right? So I will tell you about a time where I learned to master this and how to deal with it. So we find ourselves in places of inactivity. We find ourselves where we can't push anything forward. So what do we do with that? And what do we do with this energy? We've got to do something, right? Yeah. So here's the story. So back in the early days of Insignia, we were transitioning from automotive parts that were replacement parts to automotive accessory parts. And I found myself in one period of time, it was about a 3-month span, where I was the only one in my office. My developer was off-site. I didn't have any other employees. So it was just me. So I'm literally in the office all by myself, a 1,200 square foot office. I had 3 separate offices. I only had one. I had a common area and a kitchen, and I would show up there at 9 a.m. every morning to an empty office, and I would sit at my desk, and it was dead quiet, and I would work all day. And I ran into a period of time where the phone would not ring, the emails would not come in, nothing was moving forward, and it was driving me crazy, literally driving me crazy. And I don't know where it came from, the universe or whatever. Something hit my brain and said, do what's in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally was sitting at I was at the kitchen sink, this little tiny kitchen, and there was a coffee cup that I had used that was dirty in the sink. And this thought hit me: do what's in front of you. All right. So I cleaned the coffee cup, put it away, went back to my office. There was some filing that I really just didn't want to do. It was a bunch of stupid invoices, some stuff that I needed to organize. I organized it. I needed to clean off my desk because it was full of shit. So I got my desk all cleaned up. I should go through my emails and clean up my emails. And the phone rang. What? Phone rang? Oh, there's an email. And all of a sudden, shit started happening.
Yeah.
So I always tell entrepreneurs, when you find yourself in a moment of inactivity, do not try to push forward whatever you're waiting on. That's in the universe. That's a boomerang that's going to eventually come back to you.
Sure.
Do something else. An actor always has another script to read, another call to go for. A musician is working on 6 different songs in their head all the time. So get to one of those songs.
Yeah.
Find a way as the entrepreneur to work on those little things that you just really didn't want to, but it's right in front of you and it will help you move forward.
That's good. That's good advice for anybody right there. That it's it's not always the big mountains to tackle. It's all the little ones, which
little stuff.
It's the ones that trip people up quite often.
All right. So we are
special guest.
I love how we're just like right on time. So would you like to do the introduction? No, this way. Would you like to do the introductions? I swear to God, I'm putting sticky notes up.
He's gonna be right.
He's gonna be right there.
Richard Blake.
Cheers, everyone.
Oh, look at that beautiful drink. What the? Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna come on with a recipe and show up and not represent.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is my old dear friend Richard Blake. Richard is a veteran of 15 Broadway shows. He's been acting since he was a kid. Richard's greatest claim to fame is that he took down Sutton Foster on what the hell was it called? It was called Star Search. Yeah. So Sutton Foster, lots of Tony Awards, lots of TV shows and all that stuff. The one time she lost, guess who she lost to? That guy right there. And the winner is not Sutton Foster. That guy right there.
You got 3.5 stars. I got 3 3/4 stars.
There you go. That's all you need.
I will never let her live it down. Quick funny story. She actually texted me. She went on the Colbert Report. Not the report, the show. Stephen Colbert Show.
Right. She told the story.
Oh yeah, and she told the story. But earlier in the day, before it happened, she was like, "Hey, just a heads up. I'm sorry." And I was like, "What did you do?" And they showed the footage, and Colbert rightly said. Made some joke at my expense, but rightly so.
It's such a great story. Once we've all known each other for decades now. Richard and I were in the original Broadway production of The Wedding Singer, written by my dear friend Matt Sklar and Chad Beglin, directed by our friend John Rando, and starring basically all of our best friends. It was one of the great experiences of my career, and I think anyone who was involved in it just had a ball. We all showed up for our first day of rehearsal and looked around the room, and we just kind of giggled like, we're putting together a Broadway show? Us? Fantastic. It turned out to be just an amazing experience. And for obvious reasons, meaning my hair, I was Richard's understudy. So it all made a lot of sense at the time. And I had this beautiful wig that was made not to look like Glenn Guglia, but to look like Richard Blake. It was absolutely primo.
50% of my career right here, basically.
That's a great wig. That's an amazing. That's an expensive wig. So Richard also has, over the last several years, become a producer, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have him on the show to talk about both of those things and how they sort of feed into each other. Richard is also a producer of a son who is now how old? 9?
He's about to be 9 in July. He'll be 9. Yeah.
You also are the luckiest man in the world to be married to your beautiful and talented wife, Terry, who also was a Broadway performer for years and years and years. And Grayson's. Where is everybody right now? Where's everybody? What's everybody doing?
Grayson is playing either Xbox or PS4 with one of his friends,
Nice.
because that's basically their social interaction now. And it's the weekend, so he's technically the weekend, so his school week's over, so he can go do that now. And Terry is upstairs talking, I think, to some of her friends from Boston. Online.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So.
Hopefully,
tuning in. That's what she's doing. She's upstairs on another computer tuning in.
Right. I was about to say.
Oh, is she?
I was gonna let that slide.
Look, she is.
I'm here.
The Thomas.
Hi,
that's my real last name, by the way, Thomas. So.
Right, you changed it to Blake because of Richard Thomas from the
John Boy and the Waltons. Yeah.
Yes, from the Waltons.
Yeah.
Quick story. Richard is an avid poker player, and when we were doing the Wedding Singer out of town, we were in Seattle, which was a complete free for all. We all lived in the same extended stay hotel. There was a hot tub, and it was as fun as you can imagine.
Let's leave it at there
because I was busy playing poker.
That's right. Richard never saw it. They never did it. There's a group of guys in our cast who just played poker. If it was like a 5-minute call, they'd play 2 hands of poker. I very seldom played with them, A, because I suck, and B, because it brings the worst out in me. I'm an incredibly competitive person, that I can deal with it on the softball field and the golf course, but because I suck at poker, it was terrible, and I would make irrational decisions. So Richard was on me for weeks, like, you got to come play poker with us. I'm like, nope, never going to play poker with you. When we were out there, the Steelers, my hometown Pittsburgh Steelers, were playing in the Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks in the town we were living. And I was all too proud to wear all of my regalia. I was wearing a Heinz Ward jersey and a hat and a thing and a terrible towel. I didn't care. I was like, bring it on. And Blake says to me, okay, here's the deal. If the Steelers win the Super Bowl, you have to play poker. I was like, oh, yeah, worth it. Totally worth it. It was a crap Super Bowl. Didn't matter. We won. It was a Sunday night. We all went out to, there's this one taqueria across the street from our hotel. And we were all this stuff. And he comes up to me and he's like, 20 minutes, you're playing. You have to. And I was like, shit. And what we do, we did was it a $20 buy-in or was it a $100 buy-in? I can't remember.
Well, in Seattle, because we were out of town, money was probably 20.
Yeah.
The game grew on Broadway and got a little out of control.
Yeah.
At times. It's kind of funny story. You're talking about how great the cast was and how we all sort of bonded. We used to, the poker group used to go to the theater at 4:00 every day. Now back then the shows weren't even at 7, they were at 8. So we didn't have to be there till 7:30, but we would show up at 4:00, 6 days a week. Well, not because matinee days, we would go in earlier than that. But on any day that there was just a night show, we would go in at 4:00 and we would play from 4 to about 7:50.
Yeah.
And we would all run and go get our costumes on to start the show. So it was but I mean, what other show do the actors come to the theater 3 hours, 4 hours before they have to?
Not only that, it got so sort of well known that our producer, Margot Lyon, dear sweet, recently deceased Margot Lyon, what a wonderful woman. For opening night on Broadway, she got the lead of our show, Stephen Lynch. Stephen Lynch, very popular comedian, songwriter, great guy, super duper guy. He came into opening night to find that he had an opening night present from our producer, and it was a deluxe poker table in his dressing room that became the only place these guys ever were. David Josephsberg, who was one of the all-time players, was in my dressing room, and we'd be at like less than the 5-minute call to curtain. And that dude would come running into and throw on his costume because they had to play like one last hand. Because Margot, our producer, not trying to like discourage anybody from playing poker, bought a poker table for all these guys. It was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. It was incredible. So anyway, I go and I buy into the game, and I actually won like 3 hands, and I'm feeling great about myself. I'm like, my Steelers won the Super Bowl, and I'm winning at poker. And I really think, honestly, like Blake and Joe Berg and Kern and these guys were letting me win. Just be like, if he loses the first two hands, he's just going to split. It's like, just like,
wow, you're really good at this.
I got bad cards. You won. Way to go, Stokey. You're really good. I'm like, oh yeah. I'm on the button, whatever that means. So I ended up losing both of my buy-ins, but it was definitely worth it. And I never played again.
Because you got smart, you never came back.
Yeah.
No, because once it got to New York, then you had guys coming from other shows. In between shows on Wednesdays and Saturdays, we had stagehands and actors from other shows coming to our theater. They would just show up at the stage door or that alley door that went into Lynch's dressing room. It was like a speakeasy. Like you'd have a do.
It really was. It got to be a pretty notorious game. Yeah.
It was, but then also Morgan Chevette started playing, and I was like, I don't ever want to be in a room with Morgan for any reason. No, I love him. He's not. There's no way he's watching, but we love Morgan. So Richard
commented. He just commented. No,
yes.
Actually, he doesn't even go by Morgan. He goes by Morgan Lewis now. Yeah. So, in keeping with our theme on this podcast about unexpected entrepreneurship, about moving forward, the first thing I want to ask you about is when did you start producing? You've been an actor since you were a little kid.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that we sort of talk about how situations present opportunity, and sometimes the situations are not necessarily good situations. They're they can be a pandemic, they can be another catastrophe. When Hurricane Sandy happened, we wanted to do, I was doing Wicked at the time, and a bunch of us wanted to do something. We wanted to do a benefit. We wanted to raise something. And so I was like, you know what? Me and one of the girls in the cast, Betsy Warble, we were like, let's produce a concert. And so we did this huge concert, and our dear friend, Patrick Wilson, we got him.
Right.
I called him up and was like, hey, will you host this? And he was like, absolutely. He was like all on board. He got his dad to like help out with the news stations and like with footage from Florida. Like they did all this like editing for us. And
yeah, I remember that.
So, and it turned out to be this huge success. We raised a ton of money. And then I just started producing benefits and charity concerts. And I really enjoyed creating something from a different angle, coming at it from a different position. And so then I was like, well, you know what? Now I want to start to branch into theater. I want to start to branch into live performances, that aren't necessarily just for charity, that were commercial. There's so many writers and artists and great creative minds out there that are looking for their work to get done. And how do we get it done? So I went to CTI, which is the Commercial Theater Institute, did their workshops. They're producing workshops. And then the first thing that I got involved with back in 2012, 11, was a man named Nick Walker, who has been Aaron Burr in Hamilton for quite a while, and now is playing one of the leads in Ain't Too Proud, well, was playing one of the leads in Ain't Too Proud, wrote this show. And my best friend, Michael Balderrama, was doing a show with him at the time and said, hey, this guy had us read this, a bunch of the cast members read his script, and it's pretty cool. Like what do you like? I know you talk about producing and stuff. Do you think we should like try and produce this? And that was kind of how it all began. And then from there, we got on board with other things, and
Was that Whiskeyland?
So let me ask you a question for our show and theater and movie audience. What is a producer? I've always kind of wondered what that was. Are that the person that just brings a bunch of money and goes, here, put on a show?
Some are. Some producers are. Generally, a lead producer on a project that is starting out and is in the developmental stage, they are very hands-on in developing the product. They say, look, you brought me a script and music and all this stuff. Here's what I think it will take to sell it. Here's what I think it needs to do to the story. Here's what I think you need actor-wise. Here's what I think you need to do to the music. So you were actually kind of, from a creative standpoint, molding and shaping. You're telling him they go away, they write, and they come back, and we do a reading. and then they take their notes, and then I give my notes, and I'm like, look, this is what I need. And at the end of the day, the buck kind of stops with you, as a producer. I mean, obviously they can always walk away and take their, property, the intellectual property away. But if as long as you're not a horrible producer, they hopefully won't do that. You have a contract with them too, but technically they can just stop producing the work. So what you're doing is trying to shepherd the work to a place where you can get the money, the investors, the theaters, which brings me to kind of the whole market now. A lot of these times you're trying to do 29-hour reads, and that's kind of the normal progression for shows is you develop a script and then you go into a workshop or 29-hour read process, and you keep doing those until you get enough traction that somebody wants to pick it up, a theater, or you get more investors or more producers to come on board, and you guys can fund and capitalize and get a theater. It always ends up coming down to getting a theater. That's the most important thing too. But now in this current climate, we can't really do those 29-hour reads. But yesterday, Nick Walker, my good buddy Nick Walker, did a play, wrote a new play, which is actually part of a trilogy that Whiskeyland is a part of, and did.
Richard, I'm gonna interrupt you for a second, just because I want to introduce this part of it. It's one of the things I really wanted to talk about specifically. Yeah. I didn't know you were doing that until you and I spoke the other day, doing this thing, and it kind of it leads into our idea about moving forward, and the word that Dave and I keep coming back to is pivoting, so that we're all doing the same things. We have the same intentions. We have the same ideas moving forward with the same goal of having a piece produced. And like you and I talked about the other day, not necessarily on Broadway. Not every show is going to go to Broadway. Not every musical is going to go to Broadway. That now, because of the situation, we're still doing having the same intention, but you got to veer a little bit. So when you told me about doing this reading, the same way that we're all doing everything right now, which is virtually, it really kind of spoke to what we were talking about. So please continue with how you guys produced the reading you did yesterday. Yeah.
So the cool thing about it is it started out with Nick wanting to just get his piece heard and do a reading, and he thought that he could raise some money for charity, and if anybody wanted to come and donate, he'd be like, hey, if you want, go to the Broadway Cares and donate some money, and I'm just gonna get some actors together to do this thing. And then that grew, and the interest grew so much that he had to go to a webinar as opposed to a Zoom, because I think over 300 people tuned in for this reading, including
Valerie Laukilai. Apparently, she said it was terrific.
Valerie, yes. Hi, Val.
One of our favorite people on the whole planet.
Absolutely. Valerie. And it's an amazing thing. And what I was thinking about when Nick told me that he wanted to do this, I was like, this is amazing, because you think about all of the shows that do 20-hour readings and workshops in the city, that obviously everybody's goal is to get to Broadway. That's kind of the end result that you're looking for. But not every show actually is made for Broadway. And a lot of shows can be very successful not going to Broadway and having a commercial life that also gets licensed to all of these theaters around the country. Well, some small regional theaters, or most small regional theaters around the country, are not going to fly somebody in from their theater to see a 29-hour read. So they never get to hear about this piece until it makes its way to them. Now, if these things are successful, these virtual readings, if you can find a way to make them successful, you can reach theaters that actually now are probably going to be able to do things that we can't do, like you said, here in New York.
Yep.
Because the New York theaters, we're in the toughest spot in the country.
Yeah.
We're in the biggest lockdown in the country. Yep. And to get people close together, I mean, it sounds silly, but even the seats in New York are closer together than any before. You go on tour with a show and the theaters are huge. 500, 3,000 seat theaters in New York. Like the biggest one is 1,900 or something. Yeah. It's the real estate is smaller, it's tighter.
The reason why Hamilton makes so much money every week is because the seats are about 1.5 feet behind each other. In the Richard Rodgers, it's the smallest. Like if you're over 5'8", you're just like your knees are up in your face. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's not the case. So I think this is kind of a cool thing to show how to pivot and maybe reach a new audience. Obviously, the key is finding a way to do these readings where it works out well and you can get the message across still. And I think that's still something we probably will have to develop and work on. And I think, software, will be coming to support that, or I can only assume that it will. I would love to be in that field. I'm not smart enough for that. So, but
you'd be surprised.
If anyone's out there, I can tell you what we need. And if any software designers want to, talk about designing what we need, I'm more than happy to talk. But someone even earlier on the messages here asked about outdoor theaters. And that's the thing.
I was just about to put that up. So this is from Eric Kramer.
Who I went to high school with. Eric Kramer is a very smart guy I went to high school with, and he asked that question.
So this is great. So I wanted to make sure that you guys saw this question, and maybe this is a perfect time to kind of riff on that, because it seems like it's a very similar idea, and I think it's happening in the music industry the same way.
Yeah, very much so.
We talked about with Micah yesterday. How would that work?
Yeah, I've been writing stuff on a whiteboard on the back of my front door, and every time I just write stuff down, because my whole kind of motto right now is there's no such thing as bad ideas, and we're going to be the people who come up with the good ideas. Richard and I talked about this the other day. Between the two of us, we have 50 years of experience or more. We've gotten to a place in our career where if there are people who know more about how these things work, there probably are, but I think Richard and I would be on somebody's list of we know what we're talking about. So why wouldn't somebody like Richard Blake and Matt Stokey take ideas to people who are traditionally putting all this stuff together and say, what about this? Yeah. Because they're not going to laugh Richard and I out of the room. They're going to say, okay, I don't know how that's going to happen, but they're going to probably listen to what we say. So say it. There's no sense in holding back on any idea that you have right now, because nobody knows. Nobody knows. And in talking about venues and things like that, I wrote things on the back of my whiteboard that say drive-in theater. Not drive-in movies, but drive-in theater, festivals. Like what Eric is referring to, Starlake Amphitheater outside of Pittsburgh is the venue that most cities have now. They have an outdoor venue in the summer. They pack the place. You sit on the hillside. They all look like Tanglewood. It's beautiful. And you go and you see the Dave Matthews Band, and it's awesome. And that's one of the things that I really do think they could do. And there are also outdoor dramas that happen every summer in various cities around the country, where you could very logically space people out as far as seating goes. Very logically. They sell general admission anyway, and then you just have to get really, really creative on how you staged shows. And I think that's something that everybody's going to have to deal with. Are we going to turn shows into sort of concert versions where you don't have people kissing, you don't have people interacting as much? It's going to be, again, we're going to have to pivot and do and be very creative with how shows are staged to make them still interesting and viable, but not as risky as they have been before. And I honestly believe it's going to lead to an entire explosion of creativity. Things like what Richard did yesterday, those things are going to keep coming and coming and coming because we have to. We have to. Yes, very good point, Alice. Very good point. I get it. Bathrooms are going to be a thing. They're going to be a thing. And it's going to be, you can't have 40 people standing in line at intermission to go to the bathroom. You can't do it. So again, ideas, are we going to have the bars open? Things like that. Don't know. But that's a great question. Great question. So let's figure that out. Somebody out there is going to figure out what we have to do about bathrooms. So there's all of these ideas. I really honestly think, and to speak to what Richard described as far as the technology moving forward, how to do these webinars, it's going to get better, because now people are like, let's do this. I need to put 300 people in a webinar and have it stream perfectly. I need to tell my story. I need to have these actors be able to interact but not talk over each other and interrupt, and all of those things. Somebody's working on that. Great idea, adult diapers. You must be a stringer. So I believe, and I also
unexpected entrepreneur.
I also think that in the next year, and Richard and I talked about this, because there's going to be very little production here in New York. There's going to be very little. We know that people are not going to be knocking on every door in the city right now to say, we're in pre-production. We need to get it into a theater. We have to build costumes. We have to do all that. We're not going to do that right now. Nobody is opening a new musical in this town or a new play for the next year, most likely. But what's going to happen is people are going to be writing like crazy. They are going to be creating like crazy. There is going to be an explosion of people saying, okay, I don't even have to worry about trying to get this thing produced. I don't have to have a fast track on anything because I can't. So let's just work on the material. While people are figuring out how we're going to bring theater back to New York specifically, like Richard said, you're going to have all these theaters all over the country who are going to be like, come to our theater. We're okay. Our line is flat. We figured out ways to do this thing. We'll help you do this. We'll help you shepherd along this project. And everybody here in New York, get busy. Get working on things. Create the next wave of work.
I was talking to Warren Adams today, choreographer, Motown, producer, his company Walk Run Fly. We collaborate on a bunch of things, and we were specifically talking about how it's very sad that there's going to be so many things that will close because of this, because they just obviously won't be able to take the hit. And it will have a lot of vacancies. That's very sad, but it will also create a lot of opportunity.
Completely.
For those who are prepared and ready and haven't just sat back and gone like, when is it going to happen again? Okay, cool, I'll take it. No, now's the time to get yourself prepared. And if you are ready to go when it's time to go, and you're at the front of the line because you're like, I got it, let's make it happen, then there will be a lot more opportunity that was never there previously. And it also brings up the idea of small productions, which is CTI sent out today. There's a course if anybody's interested in our line of work to go read up on that. There's a lot of info on that'll be kind of the new thing for a while is small productions.
Absolutely.
Have large things. I was golfing yesterday or the day before with Aaron Tveit, and he was talking about how these big budget movies aren't going to be made for a while. No big budget movies, but there's going to be a lot more intimate Netflix, actor-driven, story-driven, work for us. And so it's kind of like, one thing changes for a little bit and one thing pops up. We will all figure out our way to get through things.
Your office phone is ringing.
I know. Who has a landline anymore?
I haven't had a landline in probably 15 years.
Yeah.
No, Richard, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that there's something that David and I said way back when we started thinking about doing this, and it was David's phrase, but I wrote it on my thing. It says, "Be in front of it." And what you said is, if you're ready to do it, if you're in front, waiting for when those doors quite literally reopen. The idea of don't sit back. I'm a huge believer that something not only is going to come out of this whole situation that's going to be good for us as people, kumbaya, but in a very specific way, that something like this, I don't want to say needed because there's too many people sick and dying, didn't need to happen. But the system as it was, in my opinion, was not open to everybody, was not an even playing field. It was not. On Broadway, was not. Unless you had $18 to $20 million to produce something, not a chance. And there were a very few people who had the opportunity to do that. Likewise, producers, the league, people are going to have to come up with new pricing models. You cannot charge $500 a ticket anymore. Can't do it. Cannot do it. There were so many people who were eliminated from seeing theater over the last decade, 2 decades, that people are going to have to change. You can't say it's $500 a ticket to go see Hamilton next week. You can't do it because nobody's going to be able to come see the show. Things are going to have to change, and I think they're going to change for the better.
No, I'm going to argue that point. I'm going to argue that point because it is classic economics teaching us that when you can take a 600 seat theater or a capacity theater, and now you can only put 300 people in there, you've got to drive up the cost. So I think actually what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of smaller theaters. Those theaters are going to close because they're not able to achieve their economic balance based on the old rules
Right.
of now. So I'm living this because here in Rock Hill, I've been working on developing a music venue, and we were going down the path of a 600 cap, 400 to 600 cap music room here in Rock Hill. Well, that's out the window, right? Because the spaces that are available that are 6,000 to 8,000 square feet that I could develop a 600 cap room, standing room for a show. Now those are out the window. So guess what? I'm gonna have to go smaller, and I'm gonna have to go more intimate, and I'm gonna have to go more premium in my offerings, because that's the only way you're going to be able to make any money. Sure. So I think actually cost of live stuff is going to go up. And that's my prediction, is that you're going to have to increase the costs so that you can make it work. And then the proliferation of the streaming stuff is going to expand exponentially. Go ahead, Blake. I see you trying to talk.
Don't you think it's a little bit of both? Because at the same time, you're going to have to. The tourism market in New York is so driven by Broadway that it reaches more than just the theater owners. It reaches more than just the producers, and it reaches more than just the actors. It's restaurants. It's a life. You know, you come here, and it's the biggest tourist attraction in New York City economically. Mm-hmm. So are there going to have to be, to get people back in, yes, you are going to cut your audience in half, but you still need to maintain enough Broadway and be able to pay the actors, and still that you have to make adjustments. The rent has to go down for the theater, for the producers, so that the producers can afford to run at a lower cost. All these things so that you can still make sure that you can bring in as many demographics as you possibly can. Sure.
Yeah.
Because you can't just cater to the rich.
Yeah.
That's not what Broadway, that's not what we want. That's not what Broadway's about. Right. That's not what art's about, you know? So from an economic standpoint, I understand that, you know, I mean, and trust me, I have both motors running, you know, mm-hmm. I understand the economic standpoint, but the large scale is thinking beyond the one venue.
Sure.
Thinking about it as what it does for the city as a whole is more important to me, you know? And again, it's almost a model for our country. It's like, what, you know, the greater good is what's important here. And everyone's going to have to, you know, figure out what they need to take off their, you know, off their list to make it happen. Everybody's going to have to give a little here because we're all in this together, you know?
Yeah.
Think about it this way.
There's been a couple of mentions from people in here. Valerie, Courtney Jordan talking about one of the big things is going to be, and the same thing that's happening with sports is, you know, all these people wanting to reopen all these sporting leagues. Nobody has talked to the player unions. Likewise, in our world, Richard, there's going to have to be many discussions, and Valerie said that too. There's going to be discussions. In any theater, you've got 7 or 8 or 9 unions working in a theater. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to, in the short term, renegotiate everything, honestly.
Speaking of sports, it brings me to, that's a new model too, is the endorsements and advertising revenue.
Sure.
How do we, you know, these sporting events will eventually go on at some point because they can not perform, they can do their sports without an audience because they'll be on TV and make enough money from ad revenue. And because right now, I mean, Taiwanese baseball is huge in America because we're dying for it. Right?
I don't watch any baseball.
I'm watching it. I'm so excited for the Tiger Phil golf match because it's just like something. The NFL draft had a 50% spike in its viewership. So we can afford to charge more in ad revenue to make up for the losses at the stadiums. And so we are going to have to get creative in how we make money from outside revenues to support the fact that we can't fill the seats.
Right. And I think you're going to go down the path of what I see in the music side of things of lots more streaming. Everything will be streamed, and you'll be able to sign up for packages of particular show venues. You'll be able to tune in at a certain cost, but that premium experience is going to be that seat in that theater with that smell and their lights and it's right there. So I think it's Richard, I think you're exactly right. It's both. It's using the technology that we're evolving into, and it's also finding different ways to create additional revenue lines that support. The other point I was about to make was if we really go back to just a basic economic formula, you start with real estate. Any venue has to start with the real estate, the actual dirt, mortar, cement, walls, everything, that particular real estate. And we create a value. We say that's worth $2.5 million, right? Well, guess what? We may have to readjust what we say is what something is worth in terms of the real estate itself. Sure. I mean, if all of a sudden you've got commercial real estate where people realize that they could work from home, and companies like Insignia suddenly say, we don't need 12,000 square feet of office space. We can do without that. Suddenly, you have a plethora of open spaces where commercial real estate used to be, and now it's not. And now what do? So it may drive down the value of real estate in general. So you may find all of those adjustments are happening all at the same time in real time as you find that new balance. So I think if anybody is going in the future saying, we're going to get right back to the value that we had. I said this early on. I said that we weren't losing value in this pandemic, that the value is there. I was watching the stock market. Cash was coming in and cash was going out. It wasn't really lost. I'm changing that completely now. We are losing value because we're distributing value in other places. Suddenly, my business is distributing value into the person's home to allow them to work from home. Well, that's different than paying rent in a building.
Right.
So I think maybe we're not losing the value, but we're certainly redistributing the value. And it's really going to be super interesting how it all plays out.
Well, and I think that is once again, to kind of round this up and wrap it up, that everything we've talked about, none of us are talking about going backwards. None of us are talking about stopping. Nobody is saying this is it. There's a brick wall ahead of us. No, there's a big effing wall ahead of us. But literally millions of people trying to figure out how you're going to go around it, up it, over it, through it. Anything we have to do in every avenue of business. It's a whole new thing for now, but to bring it full circle to what we started out talking about, Dave, it doesn't have to be called the new normal. It has to be called the now normal. Things will get back, and eventually we'll get back to charging $500 a seat to see Hamilton because there'll be a vaccine and yada, yada, yada in the next couple of years. But for right now, we got to have all hands on deck, everybody moving forward, or at least pushing the energy forward. And I want to thank Richard. Awesome, dude. So good to see you. Great to talk to you. And I actually worked for Richard. I did one of the readings of Whiskeyland a couple of years ago. So we've worked together as actors, and he was also my boss for a couple of weeks. And Dave, as always, this is awesome, man. I think we've picked up some nice momentum, and we're starting to get a good grasp of what we're trying to lay out to people. And people are. Thank you so much for everybody who watched. For everybody who asked questions, great comments.
Can I give one shout out to a package that people could get to support our good friend Nick Cordero real quick?
Yes.
My friend Ted Brunetti, who was in Bronx Tale with me, him and his brother, created these virus protection kits. If you go to virusprotectionkit.org, you can buy a virus protection kit. It comes with sanitizer wipes, masks, and gloves, and in like sort of a large quantity or whatever you need, actually. And the proceeds go to various charities that are helping out with the pandemic, but also a portion of each kit goes to Nick and Amanda Cordero. And
what was that domain again?
It's virusprotectionkit.org.
Kit.org.
And
Okay, I'm going to put it in the comments.
really great. You get something you need for protection, something that you know, a thing that we're all trying to, you know, go out and get, which is, you know, wipes out and sanitizer, all that stuff. And why not get it and make sure that the proceeds go to a good cause? So
we mentioned last week, we mentioned Nick and Amanda and Elvis sending out mad love. Still, Richard and I both know both of them very, very well. He's coming. He's fighting. He's fighting like crazy. He's making progress, and we're sending all kinds of love to him and his family. And that's from everybody. Nick, wake up. All right, buddy. Wake up, Nick.
All right,
Thanks,
cool.
boys.
Well, thank you, Richard Blake. Thank you, COVID Master. And we're going to sign off. So enjoy the rest of your Friday evening.
See you guys next Friday, everybody. Thank you for joining us.